It's hard to believe that The Return of the King, the final part of Peter Jackson's adaptation of Tolkien's legendary fantasy novel, came out 20 years ago. Yet, despite the passage of time, this masterfully made trilogy remains extremely enjoyable and stands as an example of how a novel adaptation can be done right. So, now the films have officially turned 20, let's look back on what made it so great. There's no getting around the fact that the trilogy had a massive budget. Yet, despite this, the producers never let the money get to their head, never feel too over the top, with sets and costumes that are done well, but not to a ridiculous or overly flashy level. Furthermore, though CGI was used extensively throughout, often to great effect, it never feels outlandish or ridiculous, both in the structures of buildings and in the epic battle sequences, which are a shining example of CGI put to good effect, unlike a certain recent film on Napoleon. Secondly, the production team made some excellent choices when it came to the actors and actresses. Ian McKellen, Christopher Lee, Elijah Wood, and Andy Serkis, among the many other actors, did a tremendous job at bringing Tolkien's characters to the big screen. And obviously, we cannot talk about why these films are so great without mentioning the simply outstanding soundtrack by Howard Shore, a man who truly deserves his Oscar wins. I mean, just listen to this. And I think the final and most crucial aspect of what made these films so great was the approach of Peter Jackson and his team. Jackson clearly has a deep appreciation for Tolkien's work, and he strived to accurately and respectfully adapt it for the big screen. Unlike the producers and showrunners of a certain more recent adaptation of Tolkien's work, Jackson is a genuine fan of the author.
Well, we didn't want to put any of our own, certainly in terms of the thematic material, we didn't want to put any of our own baggage. I mean, we had no interest in putting our messages into this movie, but we thought that we should honour Tolkien by putting his messages into it. And we thought he cared about things. The countryside and the rise of evil, and he cared passionately about certain issues. And we thought what we should do to honour him is to make sure that what he cared about ends up in the movie. That's what we tried to do.
And therein lies the key reason why these films were such a success. They were produced by people who were genuinely passionate about the work being adapted, and not just trying to make money by milking an already popular brand, as the showrunners of Rings of Power have done. As Jackson said himself, he wanted to bring Tolkien's vision and message to his audiences, not fill the films with his own political ideas or social messaging. Therefore, rather than updating Tolkien's work for modern audiences, Peter Jackson and his team succeeded in producing a film trilogy that is truly timeless. The writers tried their best to incorporate real dialogue from the books, as well as writing lines in Tolkien's epic style, which greatly helped to maintain the serious and heroic nature of the films. Meanwhile, in Rings of Power, the writers tried to copy Tolkien's style, but ended up producing nothing more than fake replicas, which I'm sure they thought sounded epic and deep on paper, but came off as ridiculous and pitiful.
Why a ship floats and a stone cannot? Because the stone sees only downward.
Now, does this mean the films were entirely without problems? No. The characterization of a certain Steward of Gondor was annoying to me as a fan of the books, and whilst I wouldn't go as far as to call it character assassination, it's certainly bordering it. Furthermore, I believe they were going to include Arwen as a so-called warrior elf maiden at the Battle of Helm's Deep, have her fighting, and whilst they ultimately made the right decision to remove that, the fact they'd already gone as far as filming it suggests that these films could have come out considerably worse. However, on the whole, these ambitious adaptations remain an absolute masterpiece and are some of the finest films ever produced. If you've seen the films before, consider this your reminder to check them out again. And if somehow you haven't enjoyed this epic tale, well, first you better go and read the book, then check out the films.